You're listening to Psychotic Bump School on KCWGTheTruth.com with your host, DJ Rome.
Yes, we are back. KCWGTheTruth.com. The name of this program is Psychotic Bump School. My name is DJ Rome. And so we are very fortunate to have on the line right now three amazing patriots who have served this country. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome for the very first time to Psychotic Bump School, Hope, Derek, and Kelvin. Lady, gentlemen, are you there?
I'm here.
Hey.
Here.
Welcome aboard.
We are all present.
Absolutely. It's a cliche to say thank you for your service. So I'm going to just say I really, really appreciate y'all. Well, Derek, this is an amazing opportunity that we have here. And I'm often concerned about the narrative that goes down in our media as to what are the really pressing, prevailing issues that face soldiers, and particularly soldiers of color. And
Right.
What are the issues that matter most to them? Can you open up the conversation by riffing a little bit on some of those issues? And then I'm going to swing to Hope and then the good brother Kelvin.
Yeah, most certainly. First of all, I just want to say thanks for having us all on this panel.
Absolutely.
I think initially, just out the gate, I'm just going to jump right to it. And not to take any thunder away from Hope, but one of the primary concerns we have right now is suicide, veteran suicide. I think primarily what we are concerned with is the support systems or lack thereof.
Yes.
And the adjustment period that kind of occurs in between deployments, in between different operations and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And not even just that, not even just in a combat environment, but even in an garrison environment, the workload, the amount of expectations, and dare I say, the lack of really interest in the issues that do affect veterans and do affect veteran mental health overall.
Absolutely. Well,
so as you know, kind of an ongoing statistic is, up to 22 veterans or more a day succumb to suicide. And more times than none, there are generally issues preceding that can be avoided. Overall speaking, there are going to be one-offs. There are going to be situations where there is some impulsivity and veterans kind of lose their want and their need to live and go on. But ultimately, a lot of these issues can be thwarted. They can be avoided or even reduced just by having a sound support system. So I think first and foremost out the gate, I think that's a pressing issue for us.
Yes, absolutely. Hope, can you pick up right there? How much does that resonate with you, what Mr. Derek just said?
Oh, 1,000%. Absolutely. I was definitely going to say that one of the biggest issues right now being active duty is suicide in the Air Force. I call it a crisis. It has not been labeled a crisis, but, losing one airman is just an unfortunate incident. Some people, that's just how it goes. They just get to that point. But we're at the point now where everyone can see that there's constantly someone being lost. I just lost a friend to suicide last week, one of our airmen, Staff Sergeant Trevino. He killed himself. And I think one of the biggest disconnects is that we're in such a generational gap between everyone coming in and getting out that everyone's disconnected and no one wants to try and make a connection. So our old heads, our older NCOs and officers, they have this very only tell me yes, only tell me it's perfect, because we don't want to hear the rest of it. And if it's not good, we'll deal with it later, because everything comes first. You have the new generation who is very, okay, this is wrong. I think I can fix it this way. But then you have the old head saying, stay in your lane. And then you have the people in the middle who are like, look, I'm just trying to make it. I'm that person that's just so messed up right now, but I'm just trying to hang on. So it's just such a disconnect. And then all the you're sensitive, you're a snowflake, things are too easy. Instead of seeing things as progression, the older higher ups normally see it as, oh, well, you're being catered to. Like, I remember I got in 8 years ago, and we got the new, what are they, chloroform shoes or something? Like, they're super shiny now. You don't have to shine them yourself. And a master sergeant was coming down the stairs, and she looked at my shoes, and she said we were soft because we didn't have to shine our shoes. And I was like, how are we soft? How is that not seen as progress? Why would you want me to suffer in a way that you felt you suffered? What is it? I feel like America in general has an obsession with each other needing to suffer. Oh, I don't want to help this person because I don't want to have to pay these taxes. Oh, I don't want to do this because what about me? What about me? What about me? So we just have a disconnect overall, not just within the military, but just America in general, where we don't want to take care of each other. And it's leading us to the point now where people see no way out. And when you see no way out, the only way to get out is, unfortunately, leading a lot of people to take their own lives.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm really sorry about your loss there, sister. Good brother Kelvin, to what degree do you agree with what you've heard from both Hope and Derek? And how much is that similar or dissimilar to some of the experiences you've had?
Well, to piggyback off that, both of those guys are right in a lot of respects. So I'll just piggyback off of what Hope said and kind of add a twist to what she said. So the average person of color goes into the military to escape some kind of situation that they're in, right? So yes. be it poverty, environment. You go into the military to A, serve your country, but B, escape that situation, because for a lot of people of color, that is a way out, and a respectable way out. So they go through that, and people, I'm just gonna lay it all out on the line. A person of color has to outperform almost everyone in the military.
Even in the military.
No matter what your job.
Even in the military.
You have to perform. Yes. You have to perform twice as hard to get half the recognition.
Wow.
Right? So you're going through all these situations. You have to be on point. That is a tremendous amount of pressure, A, to just do that on a daily basis. And to come out of that shining. B, a lot of jobs in the military are highly stressful. So for myself and Derek, and maybe Hope if she's in the same career field, that is a very stressful job, because you have to know how to be a master at many things. And if you're a person of color, you have to be a master, a teacher, and then you have to look out for the people coming back on you. That's why that stigma is there of you didn't do it like we had to do it. You're not suffering like we had to suffer. You got it easy. So yeah, that generational gap is there, but I think the message is, hey, stay there, because these motherfuckers around here, they don't care about you. Right? They see you as a number. So when you get out, you're going right back to that situation. There is nothing to prepare you for the situation you left. 9 times out of 10, if you get out, and there's no way for the military to prep you properly for getting out, especially if you've gone through all these situations. There's nothing to prepare you to get on the outside. So 9 times out of 10, you're going right back to that situation. Like for myself personally, I got out and I didn't really have a plan. There was nothing for me like, okay, I can do this, I can do that. Like the average person gets out and think I can get a government job, and that's just not true, right? If you don't have a proper plan, and the average person doesn't, you're gonna go right back to the situation that you were in, which that unfortunately happened to me. I'm better now, but that happened. So you're gonna struggle. And then for a person that has mental health issues, that is a nightmare. It is an absolute nightmare. But that's what leads to that situation, because the biggest feeling that you get out of it is hopelessness.
Wow. Yeah. Wow, that's really heavy right there. So I'm gonna swing back around, and y'all can jump in any order now. I'm gonna try to give y'all equal time, but this is absolutely fascinating because it didn't surprise me. The reason why I had you emphasize a little bit, Kelvin, is because, man, even in the military, where everything is supposed to fall by the wayside, and we're all supposed to be one unit of brothers and sisters, right? But it ain't that way, right? It ain't that way. So what kind of example can you give me of a black soldier having to outperform his counterpart to be twice as good? Because I personally think in my line of work, having to always push ourselves to be twice as good, that takes a toll on us. So what are one or two examples you can give us an example of where being good enough in their world was not good enough for us? We had to be twice as good.
Oh no, like, say for instance, the biggest thing, like, if you have a paper pusher, 9 times out of 10, that paper pusher is going to get an award for the person that's actually doing the work. And the person that's actually doing the work he's doing it, he's researching it, he's studying it, he's teaching it, he's making everybody else around them better, or they're making everybody else around them better, and they're not getting an award. They're not even getting the recognition for it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And the person that just shows up and does a fifth of that, maybe they research it, that person is going to get the award.
Oh, like Monday morning quarterbacking, huh?
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, that's all that was. Let me do this real quick. This is KCWG, thetruth.com. This program's called Psychotic Bump School. I'm DJ Rome, and we're having a very in-depth discussion with these 3 incredible individuals. We got Derek, we got Hope, and we got the good brother Kelvin. All have served in the military, and they're sharing their experiences and the culpabilities that ensue as a result of not having our mental health and our emotional health looked after properly as a product of being serviced to the military in some form or fashion. Yes, we are here again, Psychotic Bump School. My name is DJ Rome, and we're continuing our discussion with Black soldiers and their mental health. And joining us once again are Derek and Hope. Well, as we continue this discussion, y'all, we hit on a lot of things. We were talking about the disparities in the service ranks. We're talking about the generational gap. We're talking about mental health. And we're talking about the level of support, the connectivity or the lack thereof between the millennial servicemen and women and their predecessors. We covered a lot of ground last time, and I wanted to continue the discussion because I know there's still yet more to go and dive into. Hope, I was transfixed by what you were saying. In the first part, you were talking about the degree to which soldiers are mistreated just because of their race and the things you've had to go through and endure right from the outset of your time in service. To what degree has that evolved over time, given the inception of how your career began in the military? What has changed since then? And in what ways or what kind of things have you done to adapt to your new reality?
Well, one thing I will say is every base is different. Every unit is different. So one thing that they always teach you is don't judge your career based on the first base that you're at and the first unit that you're at. So when I left, I was just in such a state of desperation to be away from that place. I really didn't care about anything. Like, I didn't care about what happened. I just had this urge. I had to leave. That was the only thing. Like, if I could have swam from Germany to, Texas, I would have done that. So, once I got here, I just had this state of mind that whatever this is going to be, I was going to make it better than the situation that I was previously in. So in the beginning, I just had an amazing attitude about everything. And it really, I'm going to say it sucks because it does, because when you come from such a bad place and you come somewhere else, you have this kind of rosy colored glasses on where this is better. Even if it's not great for everybody else, it's better for me. So you tend to ignore things that you probably shouldn't ignore. And, you have to wait until that time kind of goes away or like expands itself, and you're finally in a state where, okay, you're not in survival mode anymore. You can kind of relax and really see things for what it is. So coming to the base that I'm at now and being in the unit that I'm at now, I saw unfair treatment in the same capacity, but it turned less about race. Now I'm with a special operations unit. And so it became a support versus special ops. And of course, special ops, it's in their name, they're special. So, you know, they got all the special gear, they got all the awards and, you know, the decks and all that. And then you have the people who support who were like, hey, you can't do your job without us, but we got all the lesser because everybody in our command is so geared towards making sure that they're set because they're so rare and it's so hard to get in for them and stuff that they just treat them like they baby them. That's really what it is. So it became, it was brought to my attention when I first got to this base as well that, you know, you're going to see that Black people don't advance as fast, don't get as many opportunities, but I was already used to it. So when it happened, I wasn't as shocked by it.
Okay.
But then I was so focused on the fact that it was us versus them in terms of special ops versus the support personnel that it became less about race. The race is still there, but now everybody's getting treated like crap equally. So it's improved in the fact that it's not just geared towards me because of the color of my skin, but it's still the same because I'm still facing times of hardship. And I think because of the fact that there's just that little added, because of the color of your skin stuff, it pushed all of the people together, all the people of color together in the unit. So, and that is one thing. And it's like, we always used to joke around because we would all sit together. And it's not even like we were intentionally doing it. We would just gravitate towards each other. And then like people would make little jokes like, oh, look at us, all y'all hanging out together. Like y'all stick together and stuff. And like, nothing was meant for it to be of malice, but we just shared in our suffering together. And that's kind of how we kept it together. And we looked out for each other at all times. So going from a place where I didn't have anybody to really look out for me and I couldn't tell who was a friend and who was a foe because my supervisor, like I said, who gave me that first OOC was for being Black was Black himself, to being in a place where every person of color is looking out for every person of color, that's where the dynamic changed for me because I knew that we were all going to stick together. We were all going to try and work this out together, and we were all going to suffer together mutually. So I didn't have to look over my shoulder here the way I had to look over my shoulder there. And because I didn't have that, because I knew exactly who my friends were, exactly who my enemies were, it enabled me to relax a little bit. Okay. And be able to focus more on the important things, like just bettering myself, learning about my career, figuring out how to put myself in a position to get where I want to be and not just trying to survive to make it.
Oh, that makes a difference. Not having to be in survival mode every single step of the way. Great points. You know, I was kind of thinking about that the other day, Derek, as I'm listening to Hope, because you have supervised other servicemen and women. And when you have people that you are kind of overseeing and mentoring, you do sort of have this protective shield over them to sort of not only like literally protect them from the realities of their duties, but also to prepare them for sort of a coarsening of the skin, if you will, that there are certain things that are inevitable, unchangeable, immutable. What can you say about your process during your mentorship in service, and what have you done to adapt to the changing demands as someone who has entered into service but has now seen it through and through all the way to retirement? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Right. I think for me, my path was just a little bit different. I can definitely concur with Hope in that there are definitely some cultural aspects, depending on your job, depending on, you know, your rank, depending on, you know, your position in the company, if you will. Unit company will use those terms interchangeably. For me, it was quite a bit different because earlier in my career, I was in a leadership like position. So I spent, I think it was my third duty assignment. I was a formal training instructor, so I was exposed to leadership opportunities probably more than the average person of my rank. And at the time I was an E4. I was an E3 actually when I got to the unit. Got promoted to E4, and the path was just different because I had to take on that mentorship. I had to take on that mentorship role very early and very quickly. There wasn't a lot of room for error because while I wasn't a sergeant, I wasn't a non-commissioned officer, I was pretty much thrust into that role, having to, take care of other students and, peers of that nature, and having to, still having to learn on the job, and all the while having to soak up the game as far as how to be a leader, how to be a supervisor, how to take care of your people. That wasn't always easy. So a lot of my stuff was literally on the fly, on the job training. And so I made mistakes along the way, I think as you grow into being a leader and, you're thrust into different roles and different positions, you're able to see things a little differently, from a different scope, from a different perspective. So my experience was a little, I guess, balanced in that because while I went through my own challenges, I was still immersed in what was going on in the unit, kind of what Hope was going through with some of her peers, and having to kind of see things from afar and how people were being treated and how the disparity between Black uniform personnel and other personnel just differed. Whether it was disciplinary, whether it was just everyday interpersonal relations, whatever have you, it was just different. As I got older, as I grew into my stripes, so to speak, that role significantly changed because it wasn't just about me. I had to look out for, other uniformed personnel. So it really changed my perspective in it just being I'm out for me type thing. I think Hope brought up something very poignant in the last conversation in that, when we go through the gauntlet, if you will, and we pay our dues or whatnot, we almost feel like the next generation behind us has to go through that in order for them to understand what it's like to go through something, or what it's like to experience, grief and whatnot, when it really shouldn't even be about that. It should be about putting the next person up, regardless of rank, regardless of, race or whatever have you. I will be honest with you. I feel like in a lot of ways, in different scenarios, I felt helpless in a lot of ways because I understood the culture, understood the let's call it foolery behind the scenes, right? When you read between the lines, when you look at what the intent is, when you look at the person perspective, and you try to take it as if you try to take it with a grain of salt. You don't want to side with just one person per se, but being Black and being in the military, it's hard not to, especially when you've experienced certain atrocities, and then you go to other units, you go to other places, and you see it play out in front of you. You know what it looks like. You know what the tone looks like when certain people walk in the room, or when certain people walk away from conversations, and there's an undertone of hate or just just a lot of crazy mess going on. So for me, I had to do right by both. There's a fine line between toting the company line, so to speak, and doing right by people. I think for a lot of us in leadership positions, that's the real challenge, is how do you get things done? How do you meet the objectives of the mission, and all the while serve the needs of your people?
Right.
And it's not always black and white. There's a lot of gray in there, especially when you're considering feelings and emotions and someone's experience.
You remember the movie Blak Makk?
Yeah.
You remember when T'Chaka's father said it's hard for a good man to be king?
That exactly.
That's what he was talking about, because you know what I'm saying? Yeah, go ahead, finish your thought.
No, and that's a good thought point, because it really truly has to really be of someone with high moral character, to do right by people and do the job. You know, it's one of those. It's the old saying. You can, some of the people some of the time, but you're not going to please everybody. You're going to piss somebody off.
Right.
It's a matter of how to navigate, and how to do that appropriately and still be able to get the job done and still do right by people. Right. That wasn't always a clear-cut thing for me. But as I got older and I got longer in the tooth and I saw how things played out, and all the while I'm still going through my own, I think that's what kept me grounded, is that I wasn't that far removed. I wasn't in a grandiose position or of authority or of influence. I was still in the mix.
Just pretend like the audience isn't here. I'm not here. Hope, right. Derek, let's start with Hope. How tough has it gotten for you when we speak about the hit on your mental health?
Oh, man, this is something me and Derek talk about all the time. We talked about it as soon as the last podcast ended. So back in 2016, like I said, I was just so ready to leave my last unit. And I had gotten to the point where I decided I was going to kill myself. I had planned the whole thing out, and I got into the day of, and I remember I gotten this little puppy, and I was trying to teach this puppy how to go up and down the stairs, and she couldn't get it for months and months. She just wouldn't. She was terrified, and I'd have to take her everywhere I went. So part of my plan was to leave the puppy upstairs, because I didn't want her to be downstairs and see my body, and to be sitting there for however long she was going to be sitting there being upset. So I left her upstairs because I knew she wouldn't come down the stairs. So right when I was about to do it, here comes this puppy down the stairs. And as I'm standing where I was at, I hear these little feet coming down the stairs, and I just look up, and she's there standing over my head. And I was like, okay, here's this problem. I was like, okay, now I can't do this. Wow. And I was like, okay, so what do I do with this puppy? Because I made a commitment to the shelter that I got her from, and I signed a contract that said if I can no longer take care of this dog, that I will do what I have to get her back to where she came from. She came from Spain, so it was a whole nother country away. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna take a couple of days before I do this, and I'm gonna plan out how to get this dog back where she came from, because she deserves to have a good life, and she'll end up in a shelter here, or they'll try to send her to my mom, and my mom will be so angry at me for what I did, she'll take it out on this dog, and that's not fair to the dog. So literally I tell people my dog saved my life, and everybody's like, oh, okay, whatever. But I literally mean it, because in between the time that happened and the time that I decided it wasn't worth it, I was taking the time to think about what to do with this dog. And I had this dream, and I told Derek about this dream. I was in the middle of a field, and I remember thinking to myself, I just wish I could crouch down and jump up. And when I jump up, I just never touch the ground again. I just could fly away. And so in my dream, I crouched down and I jumped up. And I jumped up 8 feet in the air. And I was like, yeah, I can't do that in real life. So when I hit the ground again, I was like, I'm going to try as hard as I can. And hopefully I just won't come back down and I can fly away from here. And that's exactly what I did. And I flew away. And the feeling of relief that I felt carried me into the next day when I woke up. And that's when I realized, I was like, I'm eventually going to leave this place. I cannot make this decision of how I feel right now based on me being here, because I was 6 months away from coming back to America. So I was like, I have to hang on until I get back to the States. And if it's still the same, if it's not any better, then I'll know it wasn't the place and it was me. And, I could just try again in the next life, because this life isn't for me.
Can you recall with us if what you got right to that? You got very close, Hope. You got right to the brink of really trying to make that happen. And can you recall, you may have mentioned it before, and I don't mean to make you relive this pain, but what was it, and Derek, I want you to chime in too whenever you want to, what was it that specifically brought you to that brink of hopelessness? Like, no matter what I do, I can't fix this. This is broken to the point of being irreparable. The pain is too great, and I can't take it anymore. What do you recall about one or two specifics that got you to that place?
Well, this is the thing, and this is probably one of the most important things I want to impress upon people is depression is a painful disease. It's not just mentally painful. It's just not emotionally painful. It physically hurts. And the difference between like depression and a headache you can take a pill and you'll feel better 30 minutes to an hour. Depression has medication, but there's no guarantee it's going to work. And if it does, it takes 3, 4, 5 weeks, or changing this medication or that medication. It can take months to find something that actually works for you. So in that moment, yes, you may have things that are going on in your life that contribute to it. But in my case, I didn't know what was going on. I had things going on, but it was, I actually evaluated. I was sitting there one day and I was like, what is so bad that I feel this way? I don't understand. There is nothing that I cannot overcome. So why do I still feel this? And you hear this so much. You see it in the TV, you read it in people, you know, when they post people's suicide notes online, they say, I just wanted the pain to stop. I just wanted it to go away. And people assume that's about your bills. It's about your family. It's about your this problem, that problem. It is about that feeling because it's so overwhelming. And even if you try to talk to somebody about it, like you're going to run into 2 types of people. You're going to run into the type of person that I'm there for you, whatever you need, I will make it happen. I don't like my senior. I will put his name out here because I love that man, and he literally is just a godsend. He told me, he was like, I'm there for you. His name is Senior Campbell. He's where I'm currently stationed. He's like, if I have to come to your house and bring you a cheeseburger and sit and listen to you, I will do it.
Come on.
And then there's a second type of person who you're just doing this for attention. You're not actually going to do it. I've had people tell me, if you're going to do it, just do it. Because you're wasting other people's time. And it is so detrimental. People do not understand how much of an impact it can have on a person. And those are the only 2 types of people you run into. There's really no in between. It's either people who are going to be there for you or it's people who aren't going to be there for you. And even the people who are there for you, sometimes they'll admit, like, I don't know what to do, but I'll be here. I'll sit here with you.
Hope touched on something in regards to the 2 types of people. More often than not, sometimes you're overwhelmed to the point where those people that are reaching out it doesn't always cut through. You know, you can be so overwhelmed that, that 1 or 2 responses of people saying, oh, well, why don't you just do it already? Or you're doing it for attention. A lot of times that cuts through a lot deeper than the positive stuff. So, my answer to why do people feel a certain way, why they, people feel compelled to just carry it through. And I think Hope will piggyback on this, is that people gain despair because they feel nobody cares. Nobody gives a shit. I know what it's like to ask the question, if I died this morning, if I never woke up, would anybody give a shit? Would anybody care? And I know that feeling all too well. I know it all too well. For me, in the interest of transparency, so within the 3 or 5 years that I had just talked about, I'd been hospitalized inpatient to 2 facilities, primarily attributed to PTSD, anxiety, depression, but along with it, a lot of the military stuff that, just wears on you. And it doesn't get easier. For me, I was dealing with a lot coming back from Afghanistan in 2016. And what I mean by climate, the climate is one of which where you never get a break. You always question, at least me, you question yourself on, are you good enough? Are you doing the job? Are you taking care of the people? Because it's one of which where you've always got something going on. There's never that sigh. You can kind of, breathe easy and eat your little cheese sandwich, chill out for like. There's always something going on. So you always feel the pressure of, company and leadership expectations, then your subordinate expectations. Then you still have your own career marks that you have to make, and all the while, and we hadn't even mentioned family and friends in this whole equation. How much that weighs in on. For me, I was coming back from Afghanistan, and just to drive a point home about climate, I literally got off the plane. This is when I was stationed in Germany, but I actually got a chance to fill in short notice to go to Afghanistan basically as a detachment commander. Basically, it's an officer equivalent, being senior enlisted. So as you would expect, things played out the way they did from a combat standpoint, as far as attacks and aggression and, your livelihood being threatened on almost a daily basis.
Right.
So you go from that into being, reintegrating back into the garrison world. And I remember getting off the plane, because we still had an hour to drive back from the unit we had assisted. There's a handful of us that drove up an hour. So we were going to drive on the way back. And I remember, there's a handful of people greeting me that I'd never met before. They were apparently from my work center. Hey, how's it going, Sergeant Van? And blah, 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 blah. And, it's nice to see you. And within the same breath, these people are already piling on. Hey, we can't wait to have you back. The cell is doing this and doing that. And we got new people to get online and get trained. So, hey, take you 2 weeks, but hey, we need to throw you back in the fire, man, and get you qualified, and so you can sit schedule and kind of break up the manning shortfall. Like within 5 minutes of me putting my bag down. And so for me, that further solidified no one cares. No one cares that you may have dealt with stuff downrange and that it's going to take a while for you to adjust. No one cares that, you still haven't spent time with family and friends to kind of bring you back to speed as far as what's going on, what you missed out on. That love and support that you need coming back from being in war. and so that kind of furthered the thought, maybe it's fortune telling, however you want to say it, of people don't care. That further got solidified when I finally returned back to work, and I was having a lot of issues adjusting. I knew very early, within a couple weeks that I got off the plane, that I wasn't the same, that my mental and physical, emotional capacities were just overwhelmed. And that's the hypervigilance. That's everything that comes with PTSD. Having issues, keeping connections involved, interpersonal relationships, that type of thing. And at the time, I was going through a lot of stuff in my personal life. Marriage life was on rocky road. My career was okay, but I felt stagnant, and I began to be very resentful for it. So in the midst of me coming back, one of our senior enlisted had greeted me, hey, how's it going? Good to see you back. Now, this guy I had served with maybe 10, 15 years prior. So we knew each other very early. He was obviously higher ranking, but he knew me, so he came up to me and began to greet me. And I took it as an opportunity to be full-on transparent. Hey, I'm having some real issues here. Okay. This is going on at home, and the work center is putting all this pressure on me, and I literally just got back to work, and I already got 5 projects. I already have 5 tasks that I have to complete on behalf of the cell that I owe people. And it wasn't just a work center thing. I owed the rest of the way the construct was laid out. It was like a large organization. And by my rank and my influence, I was tied into more stuff going on the floor, operations floor, than the average person in my rank. So, longer story short, and I'm being, and this is granted, this is like right before a major, like a ceremony we were having, like a commander ceremony, like a status of where we're at type thing. Nothing unusual, but I took the time to explain what was going on. And all the while I'm having a conversation, he cuts me off and he's like, hey, I got to get going, but hey, you're a senior NCO, you're a seasoned sergeant, you know the avenues, you know the agencies, you know who to talk to, get the help you need. And that was it. He just walked off as if I had never had the conversation with him. Wow. That I was really struggling and going through it. Right. And this is supposedly from someone that at one point I looked up to as a mentor type. Even if it wasn't an ongoing, routine collaboration or communication channel going, there was always that open door policy that I can chop it up with them and just tell them what was real and how I was feeling.
Right.
And for that to play out the way it did, especially experiencing what I experienced when I got off the plane and already kind of having some preconceived notions of, just being in, 10 plus, 15 plus years at the time and already feeling certain things, it put me in a different headspace. And it really, for me, it began to spark, the start of, I guess what do you call it, the downhill spiral, as it were.
Right.
For me, just feeling that nobody really has my back. There's a whole bunch of lip service. There's a lot of double speak on, let us know if you have problems and your family needs this and needs that. But as Hope said, there's two types, and very rarely is there any in between. There's, hey, man, there's people that are all in. Like, hey, I don't care what price. I don't care what time of day it is or what it's for. If you just want to chop it up, you just want to vent, you just want to scream at the clouds, I'm here. Then you got people that halfway act interested, but they're not as invested, and so they look at it more as you doing it as an intention play. And that's where a lot of despair comes into play, because more times than none, the signs are there. Very rarely obviously there's impulses where folks want to take themselves out and then get up out of here. But more times than none, there's usually a chain of events that's leading up to that, whether it's money, whether it's work, whether it's legal issues, and whatever the case might be. There's usually signs that are there. It's just a matter of if people want to pay attention to it. So for me, and that was my cry for help. And you know what that's like being a black man. That's not easy for us to do.
No.
Now take that and magnify that concept, being in the military and being institutionalized. It's even harder for you to ask help because, number one, it's the same like what Hope said in our first session. You got to be twice as nice to be even seen on par. We're not talking about being exceedingly above all. We're talking about just to be considered a peer. And even then, that's saying a lot. You got to be, rub noses and brown nose and be in those type of circles. And that just wasn't something I was willing to do.
Right.
So for me, that kind of started the point of no return that eventually led to my hospitalization. And much like Hope, I knew that, like, I had 3 plans. I actually had 3 plans. And one of which, trigger warning, but one of which, off the bat, I had ruled out the other 2. And I said, you know what? I'm going to park my car at this Pizza Hut right outside the gate. And where the gate is, where I'm at in Utah, the base where I'm at, there's a highway that literally runs parallel or perpendicular, depending on what side of the base you're on, to the base. And I was willing to park my car and walk into traffic. That's how much pain I was in. So it's ironic that Hope would bring up that whole, you just want the pain to stop. The pain is the anguish and agony of feeling that no one is there, despite your calls of your cries for help, despite what you try to say and what you try to do to bring attention to it. People are just so much in their own world that you get the feeling, well, fuck, nobody cares anyway. Nobody's going to miss me. I might as well just check out.
Wow.
And then I want to bring up a point, like, just to like kind of enter in that. Something that you said, I think there's something that leadership and people don't understand. You said that you talked to him about all that stuff and he blew you off and told you go to this agency. And that's one thing that I've noticed in my military career. They always tell you go to somebody else and they don't realize the person that you went to is the person that you need. If I needed to go to mental health,
it takes a lot for me to even come out to anybody, let alone someone who I halfway don't trust or I'm kind of suspicious of. So for me to just outright just say, I got something going on, that talks to the level of impact that it has on us. and what the climate is doing to us, and what the workload and the back and forth to this theater and that theater and this mission and that, like all of that contributes to that feeling. I'm sorry, Hope. I just wanted to. Yeah, sorry.
No, you're good. Yes, but I don't think people trust themselves enough. Their automatic reaction to send you to someone else is because they feel like, let me send you to a professional. But sending you to a professional doesn't mean that professional is the right person for the job. Like I said, with my senior, he literally said, I will come to your house with cheeseburgers and we will sit there and talk. And that had more of an impact on me than any therapist I've ever talked to. Yes. So the feeling of inadequacies that your leadership have also play a role in that, because in their mind, it's easier and they just know you're going to get the help if they send you to the chaplain, if they send you to mental health, if they send you to the doctor and admit you. And really, all of those people are so trained, they're methodical with it. They have checklists. They go down based on this. They put you in a category with everyone else they've ever seen, so it's completely impersonal. And as soon as you check off the box that you're good, they'll send you off. And that's when most people follow through with their plan, because you can convince a professional that you're fine. You tell them exactly what they want to hear. But when you come to someone that you consider a friend, a mentor, a leader, and you say, I need help, and they turn you away, all you really need is somebody, and most of the time, for me, you don't even have to say anything to me. All I'm asking you to do is stand there and catch me if I fall.
That's right.
I can handle the rest on my own, but I just need you to be there. Just say you're there. That's all I need. Exactly. And they don't get that.
You know what really, what really troubled me, and the reason why I became even more depressed is this. I am quite aware, even before my journey into mental health and suicidality, I was quite aware of what that was like, because I've had people throughout my career, carry out said action. The reason why it was so depressing for me is, if you're doing this to me and I am in the same tier as you, what does that look like for the first-term airman, the first-term soldier, sailor, Marine? What does that look like for someone who doesn't have as much weight on their shoulders, literally and figuratively, and they get turned away? And they don't have the tools, techniques, or the avenues, and they don't know the agencies to talk to. Like that was the other side of the depression for me. In addition to that is, and I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about this, another reason why we feel there's no hope is that there's a stigma, and there's always a stigma, but for us, it's almost to the nth degree, because it has career ramifications more times than none. Even if it doesn't, even if there's a case-by-case scenario and the commanders and whoever else involved in human resources, they play things out and they make a determination that you're fit for duty and you can return back to said action, whatever. There's still all that in the back of your mind, like, what if this goes left? My peers, my troops, my supervisors, there's people in the unit that are going to look at me a certain way and treat me a certain way because I've gone down this street. I've gone down this avenue. So it's not always as easy as just saying, hey, go talk to this mental health clinic. Yeah, and that's cool. That checks the box. That checks the box for them. That doesn't check the box for you. So like Hope said, that's what makes it easier. That's what makes it easier to lie and put on the face, like, oh, no, I'm good. I just had an off day. And before you know it, the next thing you hear the news that someone carried out their plan successfully.
Wow.
Because you didn't have that in-between measure of someone giving a crap. And someone sitting with you and calling you up. And I actually had that even before my hospital trip. I had a wingman. Now, it sounds very cliche, but obviously us being in the Air Force, that's synonymous with what we do. But I literally had a wingman, same rank, been in the same time. We looked at each other as brothers, and we still do to this day. I had a situation where I had stuff going on. The PTSD was making it increasingly harder for me to really establish, love and connections with my family. And so it really began to spurn things out of control for me.
That is an alley-oop if I can possibly throw one. I don't know which one of you want to take a bite of that apple. I'm asking about shame. To what degree is the Black soldier in today's military experiencing a level of shame that is causing them or contributing to their feelings of depression, anxiety, and ultimately, unfortunately, suicide?
So I'll jump in first. And
yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to kind of steer away from just the military side.
Okay.
So my mother, she's not diagnosed, but she has all the signs of being a narcissist. So being raised by a narcissist, they heavily put you through shame. They heavily put you through embarrassment.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, growing up with that constantly being in my life, it turned me into a fighter. So rather than being shamed and just letting it affect me, I became more respondent to it. So the more she tried to shame me, the more I stood up for myself, the stronger I became and said, no, I don't feel ashamed for this. I made this mistake, but it's a mistake. I can move on. Yes, that was embarrassing, but embarrassment doesn't last always. So when my situation happened, my supervisor came to my house and he literally told me, his exact words were, the first sergeant and the chief are on their way and they're upset with you because they had to take time out of their day because you're being suicidal. So I'm just letting you know before they get here that they're upset with you.
Wow.
So in that moment, he tried to shame me, to put me down, to make me feel like I was wrong for having this moment of weakness that I had no control over. And a normal person, like I said, when you have somebody negative, they see through their plan. But for me, because of how I was raised on shame, I doubled down and I looked him in his face and I said, if that's the case, then they don't need to show up because that's not somebody I need here. But when they actually showed up, my first sergeant and my chief were not upset with me at all. The one who was upset was my supervisor. But he used people that were higher ranking than him because he felt like he knew he didn't hold any weight with me because he was never there with me. So he knew telling me that, oh, well, you're wasting my time wouldn't have mattered. So he said it to me in the sense of these people matter to her. So if their opinion of the situation is that, she's just bad, then she's going to feel bad and this won't happen again. But I was raised like that. So I know, okay, you can be shamed, but you're not going to change me. You're not going to put me into this hole in this dark corner and hide me away. It's going to make me, instead of making me hide out in a sea of blue, all you're doing is making my light shine brighter. Now you're making me a lighthouse in a sea of blue. Now I'm going to make sure everybody sees me.
Come on.
So that's something that, and going back to, like I said, I want to get away from the military aspect of it.
Okay.
And I'm a woman, so of course I'm not exactly able to speak on things in terms of being a man, but you see it growing up. Men are always shamed for having emotions. Like I said, we're teaching all these positive traits to be negative.
Right.
We're teaching them that when they act compassionate, it's weak. When they act sensitive, it's weak. So when a man becomes shamed as a boy, you teach him that he's being less of a man. But really, you need to teach him that as a boy becoming a man, you're going to make mistakes, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
The point that matters is that you learn from them and you don't continue to repeat them. If you continue to repeat them knowing that they're wrong, that's the things that you should feel shame for, but don't hold on to it.
That's right.
And that just transfers into the military because you're not military. You're not born into it. You have to enlist into it. So you teach men and young women sensitivity is bad, compassion is bad. You shame them, you make them feel embarrassed. And you see it all the time on Facebook. People videotape punishing their kids for likes, and people shame them and embarrass them. And they're like, that's good discipline, that's good parenting. No, it's not. You're teaching them to be ashamed and to hide. You're not teaching them that, hey, you made this mistake and you're going to get better. You're not keeping stuff in-house. So when they go into the military and somebody shames them, what do? They go run into the darkest corner and hide themselves because they're ashamed. So it's just a matter of we need to rethink about all these things. Start seeing positive traits as positive. Stop making them into something negative, and start teaching our children coping mechanisms and to not hold on to the things that they did wrong. Don't hold on to the things that you can't control. Don't worry about it. You control what you can control. I couldn't control how I felt in the moment. I knew that I was in pain. What I could control was what I did about it.
That's right.
And at first I decided that I didn't want to try to have any control. I just wanted to let go. But once I found that renewed sense of self and purpose, I said, okay, what I can do is I can't get rid of the pain, but I can stay here until the pain goes away. And once it goes away, I can figure out what I need to do to make sure it stays away. That's the thing that we need to impress upon anyone in the military, anyone in life, specifically men and Black men, because Black men have it the hardest. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to not have a plan. It's okay to not know what to do. It's okay to be sensitive. Express yourself. And if the person you express yourself to puts you down and tries to shame you, do not let that person push you into the sea and become darkness like everybody else. Make it light your fire so you can shine brighter. Become a lighthouse and just shine even more, because the more you shine, the more shadow you cast on them, the more they're going to sink down into the sea and become irrelevant to you.
Wow. Amazing stuff. Good brother Derek, what are your thoughts?
Hey, man, I got nothing for that. I mean, that was spot on.
That was spot on, right?
This is one thing I will say, and I'm glad Hope approached that from a all-inclusive standpoint, not just a military or not just a certain profession's angle. We're talking about real life situations here. I want to address like what you said initially as far as young men, especially Black men, feeling shame and, feeling not worthy and that type of deal.
Inadequate.
I think Hope kind of touched on that as far as improving the environment and raising children and raising people to the point where they understand that it's okay to make mistakes. That's how I know Hope has been through therapy, because for me, that sounds like dialectical behavior therapy, radical acceptance, accepting what you can and kind of discarding the rest because you don't want to endure undue suffering, pain, and agony. And really that's the difference between guilt and shame. Shame is this ongoing avalanche of emotions that continue to trigger that feeling of feeling inadequate and feeling like, oh, I could have done this, I could have done that, and constantly revolving the thought. I do want to share this though. It has to be okay for us to experience the full range of emotions. It has to. It has to be out loud. It has to be out in the open, and it has to be without judgment from anybody. Namely our support systems, but anybody. Just like you said, regardless if it's military, if it's, clinical psychology, whatever that may be, it has to be. People, in the end, people want you to be one way. People want to, people categorize you based on what set of emotions and feelings you bring every day, when in reality, that's not true. Especially of that of Black men. We're supposed to be, overwhelmingly strong and have this bravado, right? And that gets tainted as being a sign for strength. It's being overly masculine, overly, just over the top with the testosterone. When in reality, at the end of the day, we were still holding in his image, and as much as we try to pawn off and try to put off on women, they came from us, from our rib. So we have to embody that same feeling. Those emotions didn't just skip a gender of people. We have those same emotions. We just have to, like Hope said, We have to make it possible. We have to make it safe, is a great word, to be able to express that and do so in a way that's non-judgmental. I think, along with the tone of shame, so one thing that I picked up in my therapy, and you heard me mention DBT, is I think the shame also comes from the maladaptive things you do to cope. So the over drinking, the drugs, the sexual promiscuity, blowing money or just rant, like all of that comes with the shame. Because when you finally sit in that reality, you're like, crap, I don't have anything in my bank account. or crap, like I can't even drive to work now because I'm so freaking blissed. And it further spurs on the cycle of feeling inadequate or feeling like you don't have any value. Like I said, I don't have much to add to what Hope said, but those are the couple pieces that I have. Is we have to make it safe. We have to make it appropriate for everybody to express themselves, especially in the field of mental health and well-being.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really all I got on that.
Yeah, that's plenty, because you both laid it out really well, because I'm concerned that when we lose that semblance of balance that the two of you are talking about, when we lose the idealism of compassionate listening, compassionate empathy, when we lose that, and it is sort of relegated to the annals of snowflakeism, as Hope has been saying, we do lose something as a nation, as a society, as a community, as a whole, to take care of one another. And the certain generations do feel like they had it harder, so therefore we need to toughen up. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So when that happens and people are taught not to honor themselves where they are, to not honor their struggle, and to be able to stand in that and to stand up to anybody who may come against that, that becomes the journey of empowerment that I'm discovering, is how to empower them. Because no matter what they do, in the world of sports, we love to play this matchup game. It's like, we just lost the great Kobe Bryant, and the discussion ensued after that of where he stacked up in the annals of greatness and basketball players, from Julius Erving to Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, LeBron James. Where does he stack up? And so the reality is, when you have a comparison, sometimes the generations are so vastly different that you're never going to see them matched up in the boxing ring at the same time, for example, or on the court at the same time. But to play this game as if somehow you could transport yourself by a teleprompter, I don't know, to another generation and live the suffering that I live will somehow make you a better person, that's not realistic. And so I believe that when we are more inclined to honor people where they are, that's not being soft, that's keeping it real, and it's allowing people to live in the truth of what they're experiencing. And when you deny people that truth, they can't find their way out. And that's what I'm concerned about, because even the people that I work with, when they are denied the sense of, well, this is my truth, and it's they don't get it, but this is my truth. It may not make sense, but this is my truth. This is my truth. I don't like it, but it's my truth. And so encouraging them to be brave enough to stand in that, no matter what comes back from that, is the challenge. So let me do this right here. This is KCWG, thetruth.com. This program is called Psychotic Bump School. I'm DJ Rome, and I'm joined once again by these amazing human beings, Hope and Derek. And we're talking about Black soldiers and mental health. And wow, this has been quite educational for me. I've learned a lot from the both of you. So what I want to do for the remaining minutes is, where do we go from here? I want to make sure that we set the record straight. We can only do so much with one conversation. So this is not an ending. This is a beginning. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
And so what can you both share with us as to what would really sort of capture the essence? What do people keep getting wrong about Black soldiers and mental health? And what do you wish you could get through their thick skulls about what y'all are going through? And it's been stuck in the back of your crawl for the longest time. And once and for all, you kind of want to set the record straight that you're here. And these are things that we're having to deal with. And you want them to understand and get it right. Again, this is the beginning of the conversation. So what is it that you wish you could get through the thick skulls of the people, the naysayers who don't understand the struggle of what y'all have been through? Let's go to Hope and then my good brother, Derek.
Okay, I'm going to say I, but when I say I'm speaking for Black women in this moment.
Okay.
So I just want to impress upon that.
Okay.
I want them to know that I am not angry.
Come on.
Because I am passionate, because I express myself, because I am aggressive in the things that I do, I'm not angry.
Mm-hmm.
I deserve to be seen as not an equal, because I don't want to be compared to anybody. I deserve to be seen as who I am, not who you think I am, not what someone tells you I am, but for who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I deserve to be looked at instead of being looked over.
Come on.
I shouldn't have to fight to be seen as a leader. I shouldn't have to go to training to be seen as a leader. If I am leading, I should be allowed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the things that the Air Force doesn't do. It picks favorites, and it feels like because you give me the warm fuzzies, you'll be good at this. But the people who are natural leaders get overlooked. And because of the color of our skin, Black women get overlooked because whereas our counterparts is seen as passionate and driven, we're seen as aggressive and overbearing and having too much attitude. So we don't get the same opportunities as other people. And then when it comes time for awards and things of that nature, it's, well, what did you do? I did what only you allowed me to do, because you spent so much time seeing whoever you thought I was that you never saw who I was and let me become who I needed to be able to compete for all these things. So that's the one thing that I wish I could press upon people is stop seeing me for whoever you want to see me as and start seeing me for who I am and allow me to be that unapologetically. I shouldn't have to walk around, like you said, feeling ashamed or dumbing myself down or lowering my shine because it's too bright for you. If it's a problem, put some shades on and let me do what I do.
Come on. That's what I'm talking about. Exactly. Good brother Derek.
I'll say just first and foremost that it exists. Period. I think as far as everyone, other people that are outside of the military, I think their view is that our plight is much less impactful or different from theirs, when in reality, in a lot of cases, it's almost worse. It's a dichotomy of what goes on in the rest of society. So more times than none, when you throw in the power, authority, and influence angle, it almost makes the situation much worse because, however you want to look at it, it's an institution. And I think the feeling of us putting our right hand in the air and kind of forfeiting some of our rights, like our Fifth Amendment rights and their, so on and so forth, that we're any less Black or that we have less connection with the Black experience, when in fact it's probably exacerbated quite a bit. And we probably see, feel, and know more than most because it's in that it's in that petri dish, if you will. So my hope is that, no pun intended, my hope is that know that it goes on and don't downplay it. Like you said, don't shame someone because their experience is not yours. I think a lot of the whole being in your truth and being bold in it and being emboldened in it is a lot of it is just acknowledge it. Acknowledge that my plight is the same as yours. Acknowledge that I have more to deal with probably on a regular basis than you do in a year's time, depending on the situation. So be aware that it's there. Get familiar with it. Talk to your friends that are in the military or contract service or whatnot about their experience, and have the dialogue. Spark the dialogue so that you're aware and you understand what our plight is. So when a lot of these issues of shame or suicidality or hopelessness and despair come into play, you have a perspective, you have an angle and a basis to work off of, rather than assuming that we're any less black or any less cultural because we wear a uniform. Because I know Hope probably has experienced this, but I've run across many a dude and many a gal in the military who seemingly forgot that they were in the military. You know what I'm saying? Like, it takes a little bit of, they're a slow bloomer of sorts as far as being indoctrinated and whatnot. So first and foremost, know that it exists. Be aware of what some of these aspects are, and be willing to engage in lengthy, thorough, and introspective dialogue. Yes. To shed even more light on the situation, so we can have these discussions on what do we do next. I think a lot of it just starts with awareness.
Well, you and Hope are, and I want to shout out to the good brother Kelvin as well. You all are doing your due diligence to make sure the level of awareness is at a fever pitch, and we need to continue this. And I'm very encouraged by this journey that you're on, Derek, and hope to sort of, share the rays of light toward people who need a little light shine and showing up on them, who are in that dark place with no place to go, no one to understand where they're coming from, and no one who really gets it at a deep, meaningful level like this. And sometimes it takes time. I mean, I sit in the office all the time, and I'm analyzing people for hospitalization. And sometimes it's amazing the level of rapport you can build during that time. But, I'm realistic, though. There's only so much you can do with a narrow window of opportunity to really connect and see what's really going on with someone. But the sincerity is almost instantaneous. And you can't fake that, like we've been saying. I mean, you have to really, really, really care. And you can't teach that. You can't buy that. If we could package and sell it, we would, but you have to really understand that it's not about you when somebody comes to you for a problem. It is about them and the issues that they're working through. And you don't have to be a psychologist. You don't have to be a therapist. You don't have to be a counselor to help someone in a situation like that. And I know it may seem a little bit daunting. They may come to you in a very, very, very disturbed place at the moment. And we're all human. I mean, this is no judgment, because we've all had those moments where we just kind of hit that wall and we see no way out. And it takes that mentor, it takes that special someone that you trust to say, we're going to get you over this wall, even if we have to pull you over. You know what I'm saying? But we're going to get you there, and we'll go on this journey together with you. That's what we need. We need more of that. And we need people to feel that sense of empowerment that, I can get up and run in this race again, like Hope was saying. I can get up and do this again. The sun will rise again tomorrow, and I'm going to fight again tomorrow. I'm going to fight, and that's what it is. And rather fight that fight rather than fighting the natural impulses of our emotions that people are trying to deny us and trying to shame us out of. If we could spend more energy on that kind of fight, the former rather than the latter, how much farther will we be? And so it's a fascinating conversation for me, and I encourage all of us to continue that dialogue. And I want to thank Derek and Hope and my good brother Kelvin for sharing all of this insight with us. Wow, you've really started up something here. I want to encourage you all to continue this dialogue. And let's continue this dialogue here on this program for sure. And I want to encourage you on your respective platforms to keep doing what you're doing. And I'll tell you that whenever you want to do this again, I'm here. Is that cool with y'all?
Sounds great to me.
Most definitely. We appreciate it again for the platform, young brother.
Yes, sir. Means a lot. Well, this is KCWG, thetruth.com. I'm DJ Rome. We've been talking about Black soldiers and mental health. We've had the good brother Kelvin. We've had Hope. And we've had